As a certified PMP project manager with experience in the information technology industry, it is extremely important to showcase your skills and knowledge during a job interview. The following 17 questions have been designed to assess your abilities in various aspects of project management, including scope, risk, team management, and project closure. Be prepared to answer these questions before I give you answers. Be prepared to provide examples from your professional experience and demonstrate your understanding of best practices in project management. Let's get started with the very first question. Can you describe your experience leading complex IT projects? Take some time to answer the question the best you can before listening to my response. Here's a clue. Cross-functional teams. When you've taken about 5 minutes or less to answer the question, hit the pause button, reflect, and then play my answer. And balance my answer up with yours. In that way, you'll have your great ideas and my ideas. Here's the answer to the first question. I have managed multiple complex IT projects with cross-functional teams and diverse stakeholder groups. My experience includes defining project scope, creating the project schedule, managing budgets, and ensuring project delivery within constraints. I have also been involved in creating use cases and test scripts, as well as training teams on how to use the software that was developed as part of my projects. Question 2. How do you handle risks and uncertainties in a project? The hook is risk management. Take some time and answer this for yourself, and when you're done, I'll give you my answer. Here is the answer. I would answer like this. Being a risk management professional, I have a structured approach to risk management. First of all, I plan how to manage risks working with the team, and then I identify potential risks with the team early in the project using a risk register. We then move on to assess the probability and impact of each risk, and we develop contingency plans to mitigate the risks, to avoid the risks, to accept some of the risks, but ultimately we have a way of managing the risks in a methodical, stepwise fashion. I regularly review and update the risk register and the risk management plan to ensure that risks are being monitored and kept under control as much as possible. Now, these are my answers. You may not be a risk management professional, but you can emphasize you are a project management professional with experience in risk management. Let's go to our next question. The next question here is, how do you ensure effective communication among project stakeholders? Now, the clue that I have for you here is intentionality and a plan. This is how I would answer this question. As a project manager with experience in communications with stakeholders, I have come to discover that effective communication is critical to project success. I conduct regular status meetings, I distribute meeting minutes and project updates, and I use appropriate communication channels to ensure that all stakeholders are informed and engaged. I also monitor the progress to ensure that communications that is distributed is exactly what is needed. If the stakeholder is not satisfied with communications, I make adjustments and ensure that that satisfies the customer. Let's move to our next question. Number 4. Can you describe your experience with project planning and scheduling? Now here's my fun hook. Only a fool is without a PM scheduling tool. You need a tool. So my answer would go something like this. I have extensive experience with project planning and scheduling. Being a PMI scheduling professional, I use tools such as Microsoft Project, Smartsheet, and others to develop detailed project plans that include tasks, resources, task dependencies and relationships, timelines, Gantt, and much more. I regularly review the project schedule and I make adjustments as needed to ensure that the project is kept on track with the help of the team. Let's go to the next question. Number 5, how do you manage change requests in a project? Your hook here is intentionality and a method. Hit the pause button, you answer before listening to my answer. I would answer the question like this. In order to manage change requests, I follow a formal change management process to evaluate and approve changes to the project scope as much as I have the power to, as well as the schedule or the budget. I ensure that changes are properly documented, properly reviewed, properly entered into a change log, and I ensure that the impact of changes are thoroughly analyzed through impact analysis before being communicated to stakeholders. Let's go to our next question, number 6. Can you walk us through your approach to project budgeting and cost management? The hook here, you want to extremely stress that you may have managed projects using analogous or bottom up. Not every organization goes deep into bottom up. So it could be everything in between. Could be parametric, could be 3-point, beta, or triangular. It really depends. So here is an example of how I would answer this question. I have experience developing and managing project budgets. I use a lot of formulas in Excel to create cost sheets, but then those cost sheets may be transferred into a tool such as Microsoft Project. I use a bottom-up approach to estimate costs. I regularly track expenses against the budget. I use earned value management metrics where needed to track project performance and identify areas where cost savings can be achieved. And if you don't have experience with earned value, that's okay. Just make sure you've got a ready answer for your interview. Number 7. How do you manage project scope and ensure scope creep is avoided? Now, I would answer the question like this. I have a solid understanding of scope management and its best practices. First of all, I work with stakeholders to define what needs to be done by way of requirements. Those could be documented in a requirements traceability matrix. I then work with stakeholders to define the project scope and regularly reevaluate it throughout the project to ensure that it stays aligned with project objectives. I also use change management processes to manage scope creep and ensure that only necessary changes are made to the project scope. I ensure that my project includes only the work required and authorized for the project. Let's move to number 8. Can you describe your experience leading Agile projects? The hook here is Scrum and Kanban. This is an example of how I would answer such a question. I have experience leading Agile projects using both Scrum and Kanban. I have great understanding of Agile principles. In fact, out of all my certifications, 6 of them are dedicated to Agile. So I have an understanding of the principles and practices associated with Agile, and I have experience facilitating Agile ceremonies, such as sprint planning, daily stand-ups, and sprint retrospectives. When it comes to the events in Scrum, I am well aware of those, and I use any forms of blending as necessary to combine the power of Kanban and the power of Scrum. Again, you're going to make this what you are used to, but these are ideas that you can begin working on. So if you don't have any Agile experience, begin incorporating Agile into your projects so that you've got a track record and some history. If you don't have any Agile certifications, I would advise you to get some. Let's move on to the next question. Question 9. How do you handle team conflicts and resolve issues within a project team? The hook here is communication and team chartering. So you could start like this. One of the first things I do with any team I work with is understand their team operating approach. For this reason, I employ the use of a team operating agreement, a team charter, a team contract, some form of a social contract. I have strong conflict resolution skills and experience managing team conflicts. I encourage open dialogue, active listening to all perspectives, and I work with the team to find mutually acceptable solutions. I don't judge, and I allow the parties involved to first of all try to resolve the conflict themselves before becoming more active in the conflict if it festers. I understand the importance of resolving conflict because if conflict festers, it could throw the entire team off course. Next question, number 10. How do you manage vendor relationships and ensure vendor performance is aligned with project goals? The hook here is roles and responsibilities. Now you go ahead and take a shot at it first, and I'll give you my insights. I would answer it like this. I have experience managing vendor relationships and contracts. I have written vendor RFPs and RFQs requesting for quotations from vendors. I have also been involved in reviewing proposals sent in from vendors using source selection analysis. I clearly define vendor roles and responsibilities, and I regularly monitor vendor performance. I use performance metrics that are clear and transparent, as well as performance reviews to ensure that vendors are delivering as agreed and that their performance is aligned with project goals. Let's go to our next question, number 11. Can you describe your experience with project quality management? The hook here is quality planning, QA, and QC. Those are things you should hit on. Now you go, answer, and I'll share my insights. Now I would answer the question like this. I have experience with quality management, best practices and tools, including quality planning, quality assurance, and quality control. I understand the importance of defining quality metrics to be used and quality audits. I also understand the importance of inspection. I work with the project team to establish quality standards, to identify what standards need to be adhered to, and I regularly monitor and measure project outputs to ensure that they meet the required quality standards. Again, if you do not have specific experience with this, doing testing or quality assurance or quality control, I would advise you to search within your career to find examples of quality. Number 12. Can you walk us through your approach to project resource management? The hook here is a method to the madness. You go ahead and try, and I'll go next. So I would answer like this. I have experience managing resources across projects, human resources, equipment, materials, supplies, and even facilities. I use the concept of project scheduling along with resource management to identify resource requirements and allocate resources based on availability and skill level. I also regularly monitor resource utilization to ensure that resources are being used effectively and efficiently as planned. Let's move on to our next question. Number 13. How do you manage stakeholder expectations and ensure that they are satisfied with project outcomes? The hook here, identify, plan, and engage. So you take a turn and I go next. I would answer the question like this. I have experience managing stakeholder expectations and ensuring that they are satisfied with project outcomes. I first begin with identifying the stakeholders, and I come out with a plan working with the team on how to engage these stakeholders. Once I have that plan, I regularly engage with stakeholders. I gather their feedback, and I use that information to adjust project plans as needed. I also have experience managing stakeholder communication to ensure that stakeholders are informed and engaged all throughout the project. And if for any reason I find out that things are not working as the stakeholders expect, I adjust those plans and I make amends very quickly. Let's move on to our next question. Number 14. Can you describe your experience with project documentation and record keeping? Now the hook here is creation, accuracy, and maintenance. You could say something like this. Are you ready? You go first. I'd say something like this. As a project manager, I understand the importance of accurate and complete documentation. I have experience creating and maintaining project artifacts such as project management plans, status reports, subsidiary plans, meeting minutes, baselines, change requests, and other information regarding testing. I also ensure that project documentation is accessible and organized so that it is easy to find and reference. In a lot of my previous employments at different organizations, I've been involved in collating and collecting project records all throughout the project for the final archiving so that others can learn from what I did. Number 15. Can you describe your experience with project closure and post-project review? The hook here are events, artifacts, and improvement. You go, and now I'll go. You could answer like this. I have experience leading project closure, including conducting post-project reviews to evaluate the project's performance. I gathered feedback from stakeholders to ensure that they were truly satisfied with the solution we delivered, and I analyzed project results and identified areas for improvement. In fact, one of my closures was so successful that my boss actually got a promotion from the project. I also ensure that all project documentation is archived and that the project is officially closed out. Let's go to our next question. Number 16. How do you balance competing project priorities and make decisions in the best interest of the project? Your hook here is analysis, collaboration, and trade-offs. You go, and then I'll go next. So I'd answer like this. When it comes to balancing competing project priorities and making decisions in the best interest of the project, I have experience in this. I use project management concepts and methodologies such as trade-offs and trade-off analysis to first of all evaluate what needs to be done, what needs to be top priority, and I use different options to determine the best course of action. One of the ways I do this is using the concept of value, the concept of risk, the concept of the cost of delay, and the concept of urgency to business survival. I also consult with stakeholders to gather their input and ensure that their needs are taken into account. We have one final question, my friends, and this is, can you give an example of a challenging project you managed and how you overcame any obstacles? Your hook here could be, doesn't have to be, but it could be competing demands, resistance, and collaboration. Take some time, frame an answer, and then listen to mine. So I'd say something like this. I remember a project I worked on that had 8 different stakeholders across different businesses. They all had competing demands. There was a lot of resistance to change. This was a major challenge in this new enterprise-wide system for a large aerospace corporation in IT. One of the major obstacles we faced was because of the number of stakeholders. We had so many competing demands, and to overcome this obstacle, I implemented a comprehensive change management plan that included training, communication, and a strong employee engagement program. Through this effort, we were able to successfully implement the new system and achieve the desired business outcomes. Another piece of our success was the use of deliberate and intentional requirements tracking using a requirements traceability matrix. Due to the competing demands, we had to effectively manage the requirements, and using the requirements traceability matrix helped us keep an account of who asked for what and ensure that as the project proceeded, every single one of those requirements, all 120 of them, were met. That, my friends, is the 17 questions if you are getting ready for your next big interview and you want coaching from someone who has been there, done that, gotten lots of big 6-figure jobs, and trained and coached the likes of NASA and the FBI, you need to go on down to pmanonymous.com. Let me know how I can help you, my friends. I wish you all the very best on your next job adventure. I'll see you in our next video. Take care, and bye for now.